We are now beginning our volume unit. So the standard for today is 8.G.9. Know the formulas for the volume of prisms. And our essential statement is I can find the volume of a rectangular prism. So we're going to go ahead and start with, I guess, one of the easier formulas. So I want to remind you that I don't make you memorize anything. However, it is in your best interest that you write down all of the formulas so that you can use them when solving for these volume problems. So the first thing we need to do is we need to go ahead and draw a rectangular prism, and this is what it looks like. So some of the prior knowledge that you need to know is that the area formula for a rectangle is length times width. Now what we're doing is we're adding another dimension, a third dimension to our figures. So now we have 3D objects, and a rectangular prism looks like, let's say, a box. Okay, so this could be an example of a rectangular prism. So not only do you now have the length and the width, you now have a third dimension, which is the height. Okay, and the formula for finding the volume of a rectangular prism is just length times width times height. So we're going to do a couple of examples. So here we have two examples, okay? Let's go ahead and start with the first one. So if at any time you need to pause this video to draw something down or write something down, feel free to do so. Now, I will also mention that I'm not an artist, I'm a math teacher, so some of these pictures are not the best, and you'll see when we do triangles, it's actually really bad. But that's okay. We'll do the best that we can. So here we have our first rectangular prism. Our length is 9 centimeters, our width is 2 centimeters, and our height is 7 centimeters. Another thing that I needed to mention is volume is always labeled in cubic units, whereas when you were doing area of 2D shapes, your area was labeled in square units. And now volume, because it is a 3D object, okay, is labeled in cubic units, the little tiny 3, okay? So again, here's a rectangular prism, our volume formula, which I always write down the formula before I do the problem so that I know what numbers to plug in where, okay? So again, our volume formula is length times width times height. So I know my length is 9, so I'm going to go ahead and plug that in. I know my width is 2, so I'm going to go ahead and plug that in. And I know my height is 7, so I'm going to go ahead and plug that in. Okay? So the next thing we're going to do is we're just going to do some math. If you need a calculator, feel free to use one. That is totally okay. So 9 times 2 is 18, and 18 times 7 is 126. Now, it's not just 126, it's 126 centimeters cubed. Okay, remember, volume is always labeled in cubic units. Okay, next example. Find the volume of this cube. Yes, this is a cube. So you have to think about, what is a cube? Well, in a cube, all sides, all the faces are squares. And what you need to know is that the sides of a square are the same. So here, all of these sides are 5, even though I only labeled one of them. It was a little tricky. So that I know all the sides are the same. So our length is 5, our width is 5, and our height is also 5. So when we multiply this out, 5 times 5 times 5 is 125 inches cubed. Okay, cubic inches, inches cubed. Okay, next thing. We will have a couple of word problems, but that's okay. Don't let them freak you out because these word problems are not that bad. So let's say Zoe gets a Christmas present. The present is 4 feet by 7 feet by 2 feet. That's a huge gift. Find the volume of the gift. So the volume is the stuff inside of your object. Again, how do I find the volume? Well, I know the formula for the rectangular prism is length times width times height. And guess what? There's only 3 numbers in this word problem. So you just pull them out of your problem to get volume is equal to 4 times 7 times 2. Okay, 4 times 7 times 2 is 56, and then we have to label it feet cubed. So the volume of Zoe's gift is 56 feet cubed. Okay, I also said that I was going to add the triangular prisms onto here, so I will be doing that. Okay, let me just set this up. The AC is blowing in here, so I'm trying not to let the papers move. Okay, here we go. So the standard is now slightly different, okay? So it's know the formulas for the volume of prisms and pyramids. And this lesson has 3 formulas that you need to know, okay? Our essential statement is I can find the volume of a triangular prism and pyramid, okay? So here we have 2 different examples of what a triangular prism looks like. So the 2 sides are triangles and the rest of the sides are rectangles. Okay, that's kind of what it looks like. You still have a length, a width, and a height. But now, if you look at this triangle, our height is right here from bottom to top because, okay, the diagonals on a triangle are not a height, okay? It has to go from bottom to top. Whereas on this triangular prism, we have a right triangle. So this is a straight line from the bottom to the top, okay? So that's the height. Now, one thing I wanted to let you know is that the diagonal on the shape does not matter. And this is going to be important when we do some examples. So the formula for finding the volume of a triangular prism is volume is equal to length times width times height, but because it's a triangle and a triangle is half of a rectangle, you have to divide by 2. Okay, so that's our formula. This formula stays the same always for triangular prisms. So let me go ahead and box it because you know that this is the formula and this is what's important. Okay, so now we're going to do an example. So here's our example. Again, feel free to pause the video at any moment to draw these shapes and then we'll do the problem together. Okay, so here I have my example of a triangular prism and I also have the formula written down. Now you will notice that I will always write the formula down first because that gives me that shows me what I have to plug in, okay? And you look at it, you're like, uh-oh, Ms. Z, why did you write like 4 different numbers? I thought we only needed 3 things. Yeah, you're right, I'm trying to trick you, okay? I'm trying to make you think of what numbers you actually need to use, okay? So here we go, the length. Now, again, you can compare this to one of these. So if you look and compare, you're like, okay, well, I know the length is right here. So this is my length, which is 3. So I'm going to go ahead and write that down, 3. And then my width is right here. So I know that's 4. And then I look and my height, is it 5 or 2? Now, again, remember what I told you. The height is from the bottom to the top of your figure. It has to be a straight line, okay? it cannot be the diagonal. Diagonals are slanted, all right? So it cannot be the diagonal. So the height actually is the 2. So I go ahead and write that down, but then I need to remember that I always must divide by 2 for triangular prisms. So again, the 5 does not matter in this problem, okay? So here we have 3 times 4 times 2, which is actually equal to 24, and then still divided by 2. So 24 divided by 2 is actually 12, but we're not done yet because we need to label centimeters cubed. I ran out of room right there, but you get the point, okay? So you always have to label volume, and volume is always labeled in cubic units. So whatever your units are, that's what your problem is labeled, okay? 12 centimeters cubed. Okay, moving on. So for the next couple of formulas, I'm just going to give you the formula and we'll do one example, okay? So there's 2 different types of pyramids. You have a pyramid that has a rectangular or a square base and the sides are triangles. And then you have a triangular pyramid where all of the sides are triangles, including the base. So, the volume formula for a pyramid is length times width times height divided by 3. Now, the formulas are starting to get a little bit trickier, and I'm not going to get into the details of why you have to divide by 3 or divide by whatever or multiply by whatever. That's a whole different lesson. What I want you to do in this lesson is know how to use the formulas I give you to solve for the problems that we have, okay? So the formula for the pyramid is volume is equal to length times width times height divided by 3. Now the triangular pyramid, I actually have an example of it. It's really hard to draw, you guys. Like, I had a really hard time drawing that. So if you don't know how to draw it, that's totally fine. But this is an example of a triangular pyramid. If it stands, okay, it's just a pyramid with the point at the top, but the base is also a triangle. And the volume formula for the triangular pyramid is length times width times height divided by 6. Yes, there is a reason why you divide by 6, but I'm not going to get into it right now. If you want to know what that reason is, go ahead and send me an email and I'll gladly explain it to you, okay, the next time I see you. Okay, and we're going to do one last example. So here's our example. We have this pyramid. Now the first thing that you need to think about is, is this a regular pyramid or is this a triangular pyramid? Well, how do I know? Look at your base. Is your base a square or a rectangle, or is it a triangle? And I tried to draw it the best I could. It was really funny trying to draw it. I probably drew like 10 of them before I got a good one, but that's okay. So looking at this example, our base is a triangle, okay, 3 points, 1, 2, 3. So we know it's a triangular pyramid. So we're gonna go ahead and write down the formula for the triangular pyramid is length times width times height divided by 6. And luckily, this problem only has 3 numbers. So we know those are the numbers that we're going to be plugging in. So our length, let's say, is 4 times 5 times 3 divided by 6. Oops, volume is equal to. And again, remember, multiplication goes before division, so we're going to go ahead and multiply all the numbers on the top. 4 times 5 is 20. 20 times 3 is 60 divided by 6, which is 10. And then inches cubed, because our answers are always labeled in cubic units. And I know some of you like write centimeters all the time, but you have to think about what unit it is in the problem. So in this case, it's inches, so we label it inches cubed. And there we have 4 volume formulas. We will get to a couple of more, but make sure you write these down because you will need to use them for your assignments. As always, if you have any questions, feel free to let me know.